Yeah, well, I just happened to see him, you know.
He's being honest. He said he got sick of us, you know.
It's one of those things in the park, in a park kind of thing. Yeah, and to me that's very loose too. That has a very light niceness to it that I like. But still, my all-time favorite is that Talking Heads one.
I love Twilight Zone.
Oh, yeah?
I don't get sick of that one. I love
it's funny
I
about
love that
you know,
one.
I mean, I'm interested in seeing how this stuff works out. Like, is it going to turn into something that people are going to buy? Are people going to buy these things? You know? Or,
I know.
What? You know, what direction is it going to go? Yeah. Okay. I'm ready. Yeah, I think my tape might be coming untaped.
Yeah. Is that mic coming loose?
Hello. Hello. It was. It'll ever be. I've been ready all along.
And I did want to tell you, if you see me looking away, I'm not paying attention to you. I'm just trying to keep my place.
Hey.
They're ready to go.
So.
Nina, any time, stand by.
Okay, welcome to MTV here in the studio. We're talking to Jerry Garcia, and you're on the solo tour now, which is your first in quite some time, actually. Right? How's that going?
Pretty good.
Are you having fun?
Oh yeah. Oh, well, that's the main reason I do it.
How are you comparing the audiences that you're getting with your solo tour as compared to the Grateful Dead audiences?
They're pretty well. They're similar. I think my audience might be just a little bit more laid back. I guess, you know, if that's the right word to use. Maybe that's not the right word to use. Maybe they're more. They're a little less demonstrative. Maybe a little quieter. Yeah.
Who's playing in the band?
John Kahn is the bass player and my old and dear friend, and the keyboard player is Melvin Seals. The drummer is Greg Erico, and I have Dee Dee and Jackie are my girl singers, and they're good. This is a good band. I like this band a lot.
Now, really, when you started off way back playing, you were doing. Well, you were in a jug band, actually, and you did a lot of acoustic material and played banjo.
Musician,
right. Are you doing any of that? Are you playing banjo or pedal steel?
No, I'm not. I find it too. It's I can't. It's very hard for me to do more than one thing at a time. As far as instruments are concerned, what happens is they're different. Acoustic guitar is not like electric guitar. It's for me, it's a different set of chops, and pedal steel is even more different, and banjo is even more different. So it's hard for me to switch hats like that. I haven't got that kind of concentration, or I like to feel very good at one thing, you know. And so for me it's a matter of doing something full tilt and not splitting my attention. I tried it various times, and you know, during my so-called career, and it doesn't work. You know, I find myself like when I was playing pedal steel for a while, when I was back with the New Riders, I was playing pedal steel for half the night, and then I played guitar for half the night, and I found that the change in muscle development from holding a steel bar, you know, with one hand and your wrist down and not using your fingers at all for half the night, and then going to the wrist up position and moving your fingers. It was like when I went to play the guitar, my fingers felt like lead, you know. I got cramps in my hands and everything, and my guitar playing suffered terribly. I mean, it got to be really awful, and I got to this point where I felt like if I'm going to do both, I'm going to end up being real mediocre on both instruments, and I'm not going to feel like I'm getting off at all, you know. So it's like finally at some point I had to decide, what am I going to do, this full time or this other? So I opted for the guitar, and actually I think I've put more energy in it. I feel more comfortable and more natural with it, you know. It's
playing the guitar.
Yeah, it's the kind of musician I am. I can't switch guitars either. Like a lot of guys, a lot of bands go out there with, you know, hundreds of guitars on stage and change guitars for every tune and stuff like that. That's another thing I can't do. I can only play one guitar, and I have it set up very carefully, and it's me and that instrument. You know,
has it been with you a long time?
Yeah,
like your baby.
I do them one at a time. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's the way it is. I have that one guitar, and that's the one I play, and any change in that is a major trauma. Yeah.
I know. Musician and their instrument, they're very inseparable. But you know, you're saying that you can't really, like, you know, play two instruments at one time, but
Not very well.
yet though you have your solo career and also with the Grateful Dead, how are you doing
Well, that's a
both
little
of those?
different. That's a little different. For for me, there's no conflict there because I'm playing the electric guitar, which I conceive of as one kind of energy, one kind of instrument, and the differences in music are very natural for me, and the kind of music that I play in my band is different from Grateful Dead music, and it's so it's like my solo career is kind of this accident, really. You know, I never really planned on it. What happened was that it used to be that when we were at home and the Grateful Dead wasn't working, I would get horny to play. You know, I would want to play. So I started going to these Monday night jam sessions that they used to have at this club in San Francisco called Matrix, and I started going down there and playing, and that's where I met Merle Saunders, and I started playing with him on a regular basis there every Monday night, and I met John Kahn there, and we started playing, and we were playing there for maybe a year, every Monday night nearly, when I was in town, in a very casual way, and this gradually turned into something kind of a little more formal, you know, and so on until now. See, and this has all been just really just comes from my wanting to be able to play a lot. That's really what it's about.
So developed into a serious thing then.
Kinda.
Fun, yeah.
Kinda. I try not to let it be too serious because it isn't really something. I really don't want a solo career in that sense. You know. I just like to play, really, is what it's about.
You know, with the Grateful Dead, like bands like The Who or the Rolling Stones have real solid, hardcore fans that have followed them, you know, through the years. But with your band, you have something one step beyond that, really, with the Deadheads. Now, how can you explain this culture that has followed you, and they're so dedicated, they just are still
I can't
there.
explain it. I can't explain it. They aren't the same people, you know. I mean, also, it's not as though we have a bunch of 40-year-old hippies.
No, but it's like a, you know,
the same kind of people,
right,
though.
yeah.
I think that's the key to it, you know, is that there's a certain kind of person, you know, maybe in every generation or whatever. I really don't quite know how to split it up, but there's a certain kind of person that likes what we do. You know, it's like there's certain kind of people that like licorice, you know, or a certain kind of people that like buttermilk or something, you know, and it might not be something that everybody likes, but there are certain kind of people that really do like it and empathize, you know, or it's like what they would do, you know, or something like that. You know, that's as close as I can come to figuring out why it is that we have this kind of. Our audience has been actually gradually increasing over the year. We're the slowest rising rock and roll band in the world. That's really what it's about. You know, that's what's happening with us, and it's just, you know, I really don't know why, but that's as close as I can come. Is there's a certain kind of person that we're for them, you know, and it's like discovering us is like, oh yeah, right, you know, this is for me. That's as close as I can come.
You get any strange kind of presents or letters from your fans?
Oh yeah, wonderful things. In fact, there's a neat book out that's a Deadheads book. It's about Deadheads and for Deadheads, and has lots and lots of stuff that Deadheads have created, and anecdotes, and it talks really about that subculture, if you want to describe it as that. It kind of gives you some sense of what they do or who they are. And
what kind of thing?
That.
Can you think of, you know, like one gift that...
Every kind of thing. I mean, everything from original artwork, you know, like really lovely things, really beautifully executed things, to things like motorcycles with the Grateful Dead designs on them, and vans, customized vans, you know, with that kind of stuff, you know, American, you know, hardware art, to, you know, fine arts and tapestries and you know, lovely boutiques and all kinds of things. I mean, just every form of plastic art that I'm aware of, we've had some version of, and a really well done. Stained glass, we've had an incredible stained glass window. So I mean, a huge, beautiful stained glass window of one of the covers of one of our albums. Somebody lovingly put together, and it's a beautiful piece.
Which
really
album?
The Blues for All album. And it makes an amazing, impressive stained glass. It has such a monumental composition. It really looks great. It's a stained glass window. But there are lots of those kind of things, and things that are not only derived from the artwork that's created by our people, but, you know, I mean, the artists that do our covers and so forth, but people who have truly original visions that are somehow inspired or, you know, motivated somehow by their relationship to the Grateful Dead experience. You know, it's things that are truly original and wonderful letters, and real literate I mean, we have great range, you know, from kind of street. Like there's a guy that's got a tattoo of me on his arm. I mean, you know, and it's a nice tattoo, you know, and he's like a street guy, and he's got a style and a thing all his own, which is very specific and very individual. And it's him, you know, it's not me, and it's not really the Grateful Dead. But he's used us as a kind of a way to focus himself somehow. And then I get letters from PhDs and from astrophysicists, and you know, I mean, the range is incredible.
Spectrum.
Yeah, that's what's wonderful about it. You know.
I want to go back a little bit to when you started playing guitar.
Yeah,
I believe I read. Yeah, let's go back a little bit. Okay.
Sure.
Back into the 50s. Well,
yeah,
transfer
back to the 50s.
there. And at that time, apparently, we had read that you know, you wanted to play rock guitar, but there wasn't really there weren't that many rock guitarists to study from. Who were some of your your influences?
Oh, well, for me, it was. I got my first guitar when I was 15, on my 15th birthday, and I played around with it for a year before I learned how to tune it properly. And I had invented my own tuning and invented my own chords and everything, because there was nobody in San Francisco that I could discover that played the guitar at that time, that played anything like what I wanted to play. And you know, it was just one of those things. I had to grope. Finally, I met a guy, you know, in the high school that I was going to, that knew a few chords and knew the right way to tune a guitar, and I picked it up like that, really. And for me, my music career was it seemed like wherever I was located, wherever I was in this odd musical vacuum where I somehow wasn't able to meet people who knew anything about the guitar, and I wanted to play it so badly, you know. And so for me, it was this process of little discoveries, you know, which represented whole worlds of things. Oh wow, that's amazing, you know. And I learned these little things, and it was definitely the hard way to do it, you know. I mean, I wish that I'd taken lessons, and you know, I could have saved myself years of trouble, but it just didn't work out that way, you know. And when I went into bluegrass music, I had the same difficulty. You know, I learned banjo off the records and stuff like that, and I knew very few bluegrass musicians. I'd meet a few, and I just couldn't. I couldn't get involved in a musical situation that was satisfying for me, because I wanted the music to be as good as the way I imagined it. You know what I mean? And it just never was that way, and so. I kept trying to find niches and things like that. And finally, this jug band thing worked out pretty good, because it didn't require that anybody be very good, see? Nobody had to be an expert, you know, and you could have fun with it, but it was still musical. I mean, it still had the basic elements of music. And from that moment, it seemed to me that the thing to do would be to get together with your friends and try to hammer something out of that situation and forget about good, bad, or
just
indifferent, right? And try and go about it that way, you know. So that kind of opened the door for me as far as acceptance goes, you know, to let myself be in this situation, you know. So the jug band turned into the Warlocks, which kind of turned into the Grateful Dead, which... That
was my next question.
Okay.
So moving up a little in time to the early 60s.
Trudging through time.
Trudging through time. Yeah. Right, but how did you meet the members of Grateful Dead, the original members, for instance, Phil Lesh?
Well, when I met Phil, he was a lunatic classical composer, and he had a little place in Berkeley, a little apartment in Berkeley, and he had like a card table that had orchestra charts, orchestra scoring paper, these things with 1 million staves on them. He was writing this thing for 4 orchestras, you know, and no piano or anything, you know. He had perfect pitch. He just pulled the notes out of his head. He had an incredible musical education, the most knowledgeable guy I've ever known.
So almost the opposite.
Oh yeah, a totally different, but incredible, super live wire. Phil was, when I first met him. He was a real live wire. So we hit it off like sparks, you know, bam, bam, bam. And at the time, he was working at a radio station over there that was one of the Pacifica, you know, like educational TV on the radio is what it boils down to. And he was the engineer for a folk music show, and at the time that was during my folky period, you know. So he liked the music that I was playing, my little blues tunes and folk songs and stuff. So he engineered this hour-long program I did for that radio show, and you know, that was kind of our first musical connection, because we were worlds apart musically. that's when I first met him. That was like 3 or 4 years before the Grateful Dead formed. And then Phil and I knew each other socially. We were friends. We weren't musically involved with each other. But then I ran into him again when the Warlocks had started, and there was my old pal Phil. See, and now he was driving a truck for the post office, you know, and a hippie, you know, and he came down to see the band, the Warlocks, as they were at that time. He came down from San Francisco down the peninsula and said, "Oh man, this is amazing." I said, "Hey man, how would you like to play bass in the band?" You know, because I knew that with Phil, he had so much talent. And he knew everything there was to know about music, you know, so the structure of rock and roll was certainly no problem for him. And all I had to do was tell him how the bass was tuned, you know, and 2 weeks later he played his first gig, you know. And basically he's invented the instrument, you know, as he's gone along. I mean, he's a guy who's invented a way to play, and in fact he's got a 6-string instrument, which is his own invention, and it's completely unique, and his whole approach to it and everything is completely unique. He's an amazing guy.
When did Pigpen fit in?
Pigpen was another guy I knew socially, and he was this 15-year-old kid who was you know, hung out in Palo Alto, cutting school all the time and drinking wine, going over to East Palo Alto, where all the black people lived, and that was the ghetto. We all lived over there at various periods of time, and he hung out, you know, and played harmonica, and his father was the first rhythm and blues disc jockey in the Bay Area, which is an interesting thing about Pigpen. So he grew up with the blues and R&B, you know, it was just as natural to him as, I mean, that was the music that came out of it. I mean, if you asked him what's music, what he came out with was the blues, you know. So he never really thought of himself as a performer. I don't think it was just something he could do, you know. And we would really coax him into it. We sort of forced him into performing, you know. So, and I also knew that he played a little piano. So, and it was just natural as can be, you know. Pigpen, hey, yeah, you know, he's a great singer, you know, sang the blues real well. So, from the jug band to a sort of electric blues band, that was the transition. That's what the Warlocks was originally, kind of.
Do you think that the sound of the Grateful Dead has ever been captured correctly or the right way on vinyl?
No, I don't.
A studio album, I should say.
No, not at all, not at all. Because when we go into the studio, we turn into these scientists, you know. We turn into another kind of, we become another sort of person, and no, we don't. I mean, it's like the difference between building a ship in a bottle and being in a rowboat on the ocean, you know. It's a world of difference, you know.
How would you compare like a Dead album, the recent ones, to the older albums?
Well, it's hard for me to make comparisons. I see all of the Grateful Dead albums as near misses, you know, and like that, you know, because I can only see them in terms of the discrepancy between my own mental conception of what a tune should be like, and the realization, which I always feel is slightly flawed, you know, just because it always is. But the thing about the Grateful Dead is that it's not my point of view, you know what I mean? So that's the thing I'm constantly coming to grips with, and we all are in our way. There's the difference between what we think it ought to be individually and what it is. And what it is always turns out to be more interesting and more itself than any of our individual viewpoints contains. You know what I mean? It's the thing is larger than the sum of the parts of the whatever, you know, that rap.
When you're playing live, what specific songs do you play that take you off into the solos or the group, or what you're talking about, the group interaction?
Yeah.
Do you have any specific ones?
Oh yeah, there are ones that work that way. All of them potentially could, you know, and even our simplest songs are mostly choices being made in the present time, and that is to say that even if the song is just a short little, you know, 4-verse job, you know, it's the simplest kind of like rock and roll song, a Chuck Berry song, anything. The simplest kind of song still is everybody is playing what they're inventing at the moment. You know what I mean? Even our simplest stuff is relatively free of specific hard arrangement ideas. There are a few things that we have that have specific things, but mostly the nature of our music is such that it all has a lot of improvisation, you know. It's that we deal with different forms. We have forms that are very tight and very structured, and others that are very open.
Why do you play? You play like 4.5, 5 hour sets.
Yeah.
Why do you play that long?
It takes us that long to get it together. I mean, and also it's that our we don't really plan it really. It's just that our ideas even our shorter ideas tend to be kind of long. Like for us, a short song is 7 minutes. You know, I mean, that's also one of the troubles we've had with records too. Is that our ideas tend to be bigger. You know, the record is really not quite the right medium for us.
I also want to ask you about the films. You were involved in a couple of films. You did a documentary, I believe, on the Grateful Dead, like 74, 75
yeah,
or something.
It's not
that's
really a documentary. It's a film, and it has documentary bits in it, true enough, but it's not a documentary. There's a little more art to it than that. As much as I hate to use that word, it's structured really using the form of the Grateful Dead concert as a model, kind of the same way that Deadhead's book is. The Deadhead's book is also structured the way the show is structured. So I use the Grateful Dead concert as a energy model. Like when you're making a movie, you want a movie to have certain things to satisfy that requirement of sitting in a theater watching a screen. You know, it's not the same as being at a concert. You know, it's wants to be a movie. So that was what I wanted to have happen, and I didn't want it to be a documentary in the cinema verite sense. You know, and I wanted it to be something more than that. So for me, all of the bits of film, including the documentary things, they all have energy, you know, levels of energy and certain things. So for me, it was a matter of taking stuff like a documentary piece that was that had, you know, tremendous, that was up. I could use it in either as counterpoint, you know, in material that was down, or to move something along that was up, you know. So it was really making those things come together as another version of the Grateful Dead experience, so to speak. That was what the idea.
That's going to be out in video disc, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that particular one.
Uh-huh.
Also, too, you're going to do a new Dead album?
Yeah.
When I understand, when are you going to start on that?
When we get a chance.
Further
Sometime
down the
this
road.
year.
Yeah,
Let me say that.
What can we expect from that?
Oh yeah, new stuff. We were already performing the new stuff, and this is a great luxury for us. You know, it's like usually we have to squeeze the new. None of us are crackerjack composers. You know, I mean, we've whipped ourselves into becoming composers. You know, you had to have original material. You know, that was always the rap, right? So you know, we've flogged ourselves into becoming composers, and so our output is like not prolific. It's extremely erratic, you know. And usually what happens is, for us, making a record is like doing a term paper. You know, we do it all gets done that Friday before the test, you know.
Speaking of term papers, I know a lot of our fans and stuff that are watching, while they're doing their term papers, are also writing us letters asking for some Grateful Dead video. Can we expect to get any video from the album?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. We definitely have tunes that are like tailor-made. I mean, there are some ideas that I would like to follow myself.
Your mic right as you started that question. Could I have Nina ask you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Okay.
Okay, ask me that again.
Not in the same way, because it...
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we are getting some letters, a lot of letters, as a matter of fact, from the people that are watching MTV, wanting some video from the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
Are we going to expect any video from the new album?
I think so. I hope so. I've talked to some of my friends that who have definite ideas about working with us as far as production is concerned, and I have some ideas of my own, and but I believe mostly that I think we have some tunes that might work real well.
How do you feel the Grateful Dead fit in your music fit into the music of the 80s? What's going on now?
Well, it's Grateful Dead music of the 80s. You know, just because it definitely changes. I mean, we like everybody have ears, you know, and we're affected by, and we let ourselves be, you know, affected by whatever happens in music, and as we're exposed to it, you know, freely. You know, it's the thing of being freely influenced, and we steal from everybody. And so, you know, so the 80s, I mean, the 80s version of us has things that I think certainly sounds and textures and stuff that belong to the 80s that make it different, say, from Grateful Dead of the 70s or the 60s or whatever.
Do you feel that there's still a 60s counterculture around now in the 80s?
No, there's an 80s counterculture. I don't like that counterculture idea. It's not as though there were a culture to be counter to, you know what I mean? There's within the range of the American experience, down at down at the shallow end or something, you know, there are these margins, you know, and somewhere in the margin, I think, is where the Grateful Dead and Deadheads and whatever it is that we are part of, you know. Because I feel that we're part of something, but I don't feel that it's this banner, you know, that we're carrying along, this banner that's this relic from the 60s. It doesn't feel that way at all, you know, it isn't like that. And the Grateful Dead, just as we've moved through these periods of time, you know, the 60s, that period of time they call the 60s, that period of time they call the 70s or whatever, that emptiness they call the 70s, and so forth. I mean, it never has been, we've never felt attached to that stuff going on around us, really, because our directionality and the thrust of what we're doing has remained pretty much pretty similar to the way it's been, to the way it was when we started it. And what time has produced is maybe a little clearer focus, you know, maybe, and a little bit better, a little bit closer to that idea that we think is out there. You know, this is like this gamble that we're taking, you know. It's based on having faith that there exists this certain kind of experience, this certain kind of music, something that can happen when you take these ingredients and make these assumptions and move along.
Put them all together.
Yeah, and so far it's all been working, you know, amazingly enough. You know.
You think you're going to be together for a while?
Oh yeah.
Dead will go on and on.
Yeah, I think so, because it still feels very much like we're just starting to get it, you know. Oh yeah, we're so close, you know. It has that feeling, and as long as it keeps having that feeling, like it makes it exciting, you know. As long as it has that feeling of like there's something up ahead that really, you know, that only we can get at, you know.
Slowest rising band.
Yeah, right.
You
exactly.
said you're still going up.
That's right. As long as it has that, we'll keep doing it.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you.
Well, you still have your mic on. We'd like you to do the channel ID if that's okay.
Why, sure. Yeah. In fact, keep it. I've got my own somewhere. Hi.
They have to change tape for you to put that on.
Oh, okay.
They'll be ready for you.
Let me know when they've changed it.
I have one question that I want to ask you, but I'll wait until this is done that I didn't get a chance to get to.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm glad you're going to do video. I think that's one real big hole in the channel. You got to have great.
Yeah, we will. We will.
I'm glad. It's a ways off, I know, because you haven't done the album yet, but I'm glad you're thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still have the production company? Yeah. The film?
Not really. But it can be reassembled at any moment. Wait a minute.
Better now?
Are you ready for this?
Okay.
Hello?
For you, I believe.
Hey, is that Jerry Garcia?
Hi.
Is that MTV?
Hi. I'm Jerry Garcia.
Oh, let's start one more time.
Sorry.
Quiet, please.
Hi. I'm Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead on MTV Music Television, the channel you've been waiting for.
That's great. You want another take for safety? That was terrific.
Just once more for safety. Quiet, please.
Hi, I'm Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead on MTV Music Television, the channel you've been waiting for.
Terrific. We're going to take a two-shot from here. If you just keep talking for one more second, we're going to take a two-shot live here.
Yeah, what I wanted to ask you about was, should I not talk? Or, Okay. Yes, how you got involved with the acid tests?
Friends, really, is really what that was about, because it was part of a social scene. See, the Grateful Dead sort of grew out of a social scene. And one corner of that social scene was Kesey, and his scene is all around Palo Alto, around Stanford, you know. Yeah. See, so Kesey, who's the famous writer, you know, the local famous writer, and of course his famous bus and everything. And we had friends, like Phil had this friend, a guy named Page, who was... Yeah, right. Yeah. So he came down to one of the clubs.